a fascinating player. I mean, that's exactly what the tennis world needed. Very charismatic.
It was a spectacle of artistry on the tennis court, yet the outcome was a stark reality. On a Sunday in Monte Carlo, the red clay witnessed Jannik Sinner hoisting the trophy while Carlos Alcaraz saw his world #1 ranking slip away. This was not an isolated incident, it was the culmination of a worrying trend. Just weeks prior, Alcaraz was defeated by the 36th-ranked Sebastian Corda in Miami, and before that, his campaign at Indian Wells was cut short by Daniil Medvedev. A pattern of vulnerability was beginning to emerge for the Spanish prodigy.
For that, Medvedev ended his Indian Wells run.
Alcaraz badly wanted to win, wanted to come out and penetrate the court enough, and he has that kind of confidence in his game.
He possesses the confidence and skill to dominate the court, yet a player with 8 Grand Slam titles and a career slam to his name is now suffering defeats that should be unthinkable. It was Boris Becker who finally broke the silence at Monte Carlo, stating plainly to the press what many had only whispered. He bypassed excuses like injury or tactics and used a single potent word, bored. This one word brought a hidden problem into the light. Though Becker's assessment was still considered polite, in July 2025, Nick Kyrgios had been far more blunt, declaring on camera that Alcaraz's social life was evolving into his primary weakness. He chose Sinner's career trajectory over Alcaraz's for a simple reason: the allure of nightlife, women, and unchecked freedom. Alcaraz dismissed these as funny comments, insisting his personal life had no bearing on his performance. The results since then, however, suggest otherwise. For those seeking the unvarnished truth that other outlets avoid, subscribing now is essential, as this channel is dedicated to asking the questions everyone else is too afraid to voice.
Someone willing to actually look at the evidence without flinching.
Simply has just walked into the conversation with the best of all time. There's only so many people on earth that can walk around and say to any Grand Slam venue and be like, oh, I won here too.
Carlos Alcaraz celebrated his 22nd birthday in May 2025, an age when most tennis professionals are battling in challenger tournaments for a chance at a main draw. Alcaraz, by contrast, had already secured 4 major titles and would end that year with 7. By January 2026, he had achieved the career Grand Slam in Melbourne, becoming the youngest man in the Open era to hold all 4 major championships concurrently. His resume paints a picture of the most accomplished young athlete the sport has ever seen. So why would a figure like Boris Becker describe him as bored in Monaco? The word was chosen with intent, a hallmark of Becker's analytical commentary. He lauded Alcaraz as a true artist, and precisely what tennis needed: lofty praise from a 6-time major winner. But this praise came with a significant caveat. Artists require inspiration, and if victory becomes too routine, boredom can set in. This wasn't just a compliment with a minor note. It was a profound diagnosis disguised as flattery, delivered at a critical moment in April 2026, the very week Alcaraz lost the Monte Carlo final and his #1 ranking to Sinner, making a year-long pattern impossible to ignore.
12 months finally became impossible to ignore.
They're going to look at Carlos and what he does and how he loves to be aggressive and move forward, because we lost a lot of that. You don't see the volleying that much, but I think that's going to
travel back to March 2025, when Alcaraz entered the Miami Open only to be eliminated in his first match by David Goffin, a Belgian veteran ranked 55th. This wasn't a loss to a top-tier contender but to a journeyman who derailed the world's best player. Following the defeat, Alcaraz made a stunning admission, confessing to reporters that he had contemplated stopping the sport entirely for a period of months. This is not the language of a focused and driven champion after an early round exit. Becker seized on these words for his podcast, The Becker-Petkovic Show, where he made a statement that deserved more attention. He suggested Alcaraz was nearing a state of depression and urged his team to question if they had demanded too much from a 21-year-old. Describing Alcaraz as a machine under an overwhelming schedule, Becker delivered a chilling line: "We have to protect Carlos from himself." This wasn't a comment about boredom, it was an alarm bell about genuine psychological distress. The incredible 7-title run that followed didn't resolve the underlying issues of pressure and exhaustion, it merely buried them beneath a pile of trophies for a time.
Barely. Not the wind, not tactics, a state of mind.
50-50 on them, who's the best. For me now, Carlos just feels...
Clearly, we've never seen a more explosive tennis player ever than Alcaraz, right? As athletes evolve, is it possible that someone in 15 years' time can be even more athletic than Alcaraz? Or is he at the very, very top? I mean, I don't see how it's possible. But you said that 15, 20 years ago as well.
Yeah, you said that with Rafa too, right?
I don't see how it's possible.
Exactly. But his just pure explosion, his fast twitch, I would put up with any athlete in the world.
This is the point where the narrative threads of Becker's diagnosis and Kyrgios's accusations intertwine. During a July 2025 episode of the Ultimate Tennis Showdown with Patrick Muratoglu, Kyrgios was asked to predict who would have the superior career, Alcaraz or Sinner. Without hesitation, he picked Sinner, basing his reasoning not on tennis metrics but on lifestyle. Stating that Alcaraz's affinity for women and parties might become a significant distraction, he argued Sinner's focus was more steadfast. Muratoglu, a highly respected coach, didn't dismiss the idea. He affirmed the logic, noting Sinner's overall consistency stemmed from his mentality. He observed that Alcaraz was losing matches he shouldn't and seemed mentally absent at times, even during play. Later, clarifying his remarks on TalkSport, Kyrgios revealed something deeper, suggesting Alcaraz knows he enjoys the party scene and is trying to find a balance that Kyrgios himself failed to achieve early in his own career. This wasn't a condemnation, but a warning from someone who sees a reflection of his own past, recognizing the same perilous crossroads that prematurely ended his own potential.
He valued the connection they had built since their junior circuit days.
You guys had some good chemistry.
About your friendship with Carlos, is there any truth behind the rumors?
Alcaraz's public response at Wimbledon 2025 was carefully composed. He labeled Kyrgios's remarks as funny, and while conceding Sinner had fewer mental fluctuations, he insisted it was unrelated to the nightlife world. His answer was polished and PR approved, yet his acknowledgement of his own inconsistency was a subtle admission. The topic of his love life has been a constant presence. In a 2023 Vogue interview, he stated he had been single for 18 months, citing the complexities of maintaining a relationship while touring globally. By late 2025, however, the situation had shifted. He was linked to Brooks Nader, a 29-year-old model, a connection her sister confirmed. Nader appeared in his player's box at the US Open and later gave a coy, "a lady never kisses and tells" response when asked about it, hinting at simultaneous rumors involving Sinner. Before Nader, speculation swirled around a partnership with Emma Raducanu for mixed doubles, which she later clarified was just a friendship. Then came Peggy Gou, a South Korean DJ seen in his box at the 2026 Australian Open, whom Alcaraz called a really cool friend. At the ATP Finals, when asked if his heart was taken, he laughed and repeated, "I'm free" 3 times, a response that only fueled more speculation.
Legendary career already.
I think Alcaraz definitely got room for improvement.
It feels like we'd seen the end of that kind of Carlos Alcaraz.
They're going to look at Carlos and what he does and how he loves to be aggressive and move forward, because we lost a lot of that.
I mean, Alcaraz, I'm sorry, but this guy's amazing.
To understand the context, one must look at the unwavering discipline of tennis legends. Roger Federer would isolate himself before Grand Slams, Rafael Nadal's social life was virtually non-existent during the clay court season, and Novak Djokovic famously overhauled his entire lifestyle to achieve a higher level of performance. While it's unfair to hold a 22-year-old to these standards, the sport itself doesn't grade on a curve. Sinner, just 2 years older, maintains a private personal life that generates no headlines, allowing his on-court results to speak for themselves. Alcaraz's decision to go to Ibiza for 3 days after his 2025 Roland Garros win, against his team's advice, serves as a specific point of concern. He defended it by saying he was there more mentally than physically, framing his actions as those of a normal person, an interesting perspective from someone whose life is anything but normal. This disconnect was also noted by Steve Johnson, who observed Alcaraz playing golf daily during the 2026 Miami Open and wondered if extracurriculars were becoming a problem. Italian legend Adriano Panatta was more direct after the Corda loss, accusing Alcaraz of a bad attitude and seeming listless, a word that perfectly aligns with Becker's diagnosis of a champion who is mentally absent when it matters most.
Done.
You know, it's just time. Timing is everything.
You know, we keep wondering if there's ever, is there going to be anybody else? That question still is not answered.
We're all so shocked. I have to say, Carlos.
The central mystery remains unanswered, leaving many in the tennis world stunned by a player who appears distracted and not entirely focused. He is unable to navigate a tournament without intense scrutiny of who occupies his player's box or have a simple dinner with a friend without sparking relationship rumors. Yet Boris Becker's observation about the need for a challenge cuts through the noise. Sinner, he proposed, is that necessary inspiration. The rival required to prevent a supremely talented player from merely coasting. The Monte Carlo final should have been that challenge, with the #1 ranking and a title defense on the line. All the elements were there for Alcaraz to be fully engaged, yet he lost and admitted he didn't play well in the important moments. Now, Sinner is back at world #1 with a much lighter burden of points to defend on clay. Alcaraz, in contrast, must defend 300 points from his 2025 titles, creating immense pressure over the next 2 months. Every tournament for him is a defense, while for Sinner, it's an opportunity to build. If Alcaraz can maintain his focus, his immense talent is undeniable. His potential peak may be higher than any other active player. However, raw talent means little in the relentless grind of the ATP Tour if mental energy is being consumed elsewhere. Boris Becker sketched the outline of this problem in Monaco, using the diplomatic language of artistry and inspiration. But his sketch perfectly matches the more direct picture painted by Nick Kyrgios and the concerns about mentality raised by Muratoglu. The social life, the coaching transition, and the immense pressure are all interconnected threads pulling at the same fabric. Alcaraz is at a crossroads, forced to decide if he wants to be a great champion or simply the most famous 22-year-old on earth, as those two paths are not always parallel. Sinner has already made his choice, a fact the Monte Carlo scoreboard confirmed. The critical question is whether Alcaraz will make his before this clay season concludes. If you value this kind of unfiltered, evidence-driven analysis, subscribe to this channel and share this video with tennis fans who want the real stories behind the highlights. Comment below with your take. Is Alcaraz's social life his biggest hurdle, or is Becker pointing to a deeper issue? The conversation is now open.